A warning her report contains images of people who have died in the earthquake.
These were once houses, people's homes. The devastation in Idlib in northwest Syria is immense, and they know all about misery here. They've endured 12 years of war. Now they're fighting to survive a natural disaster, and they're doing it in the awful realization that once again, they're on their own. So they dig through the night. The white helmets, so used to pulling people out of bombed buildings, now trying to sift through rubble to find those who survived the war, only to die trapped and terrified in the earthquake. They've just found the body of a 4-year-old boy still in his pajamas. His father can hardly contain his despair and disgust at how he was left to die alone with no help from outside.
Who is helping us? In Turkey, they're getting everything. They've made a special air bridge to bring aid from all around the world, but no one is coming to help us. What did this child do wrong to stay 4 days underground before we found him?
And the agony's not over yet for him. The white helmets are trying to find his wife and his elder son, who's 10. Both are still missing.
The people here are saying this is a real tragedy because it could have been all so different if they'd been given extra specialist, more sophisticated equipment with which to try and locate these people. Remember, some have already been taken out of here alive, but now the chances of finding anyone else alive are extremely remote.
They're exhausted, but they go on. Few have escaped the agony of loss, either through the war or now the earthquake. They know the importance of finding at least the bodies to grieve and pray over. Have you found anything? No is the constant answer. Even finding the body of a loved one is some small comfort in this part of Syria, where comfort is a scarcity.
I also lost my son. I feel the same sorrow because I lost family too. I know this man is tortured inside. To find his wife and son is a matter of life or death for me.
Two fathers with a bond of suffering binding them together, a common understanding of the agony of losing a precious child. The search goes on all night. The head of the militant rebel group in Idlib turned up to offer support and give a rare interview, and he was blisteringly critical of the world's response.
They're taking too much time, and it's costed lives for those trapped under the rubble. We've lost a lot of lives because of the weak response of the international community. They're the ones responsible.
He was once a member of the terror group Al-Qaeda before forming his own Islamist militant group, now focused on fighting AQ as well as ISIS and the Assad regime in Damascus. He has a $10 million bounty on his head, but he tore into Western leaders for ignoring the needs of civilians in Idlib.
The people who died in the earthquake were not terrorists. They were innocent civilians. They were women and children. So to confuse humanitarian issues with politics is a big problem.
There are only bodies coming over the Turkish-Syria border in any quantity right now. Little meaningful aid has made it across. These are people who have fled the war in Syria to find sanctuary in neighbouring Turkey, now being returned in body bags. It is the saddest of homecomings for their relatives. So they're having to make mass graves in Idlib to cope with the hundreds coming home from across the border, as well as those who've perished here. They simply can't make them quickly enough. They were already struggling with the impact of an unequal war, now more unbearable loss. A final kiss for a newborn baby, a life cut off before it had even really begun. This is a tragedy on top of a grinding war and earthquake calamity. They're talking here of deaths after the quakes, caused by poor medical facilities, of the struggle without shelter, of the need for food and water, of the urgency for just about everything. So there is misery upon misery, and the news no one wanted. Salim found his wife and son's bodies, and with that discovery, a whole new depth to his suffering. He's now lost half of his family, 2 sons and their mother. For a child in Idlib, there seems no end to grief. Life for them is all about death. Salim has to somehow console his one surviving daughter, 8-year-old Mace. Calm down, my daughter, he says. Okay, my love? This is God's will. Do you love me? I'll always be with you, he says. They have each other, but that is all. The trauma in Idlib never seems to stop. It just gets worse and worse. Alex Crawford, Sky News in Idlib, Syria.